aka for choosing my own path over my father's legacy, causing a complete rupture in our family and shattering years of unspoken expectations? I, a 30-year-old man, am currently navigating the most tumultuous period of my life, utterly adrift after a catastrophic confrontation with my father. I feel like my world has been turned upside down, and I honestly don't know if I'm the villain or a hero in my own story. My father, Robert, 58, is a self-made man, a titan in the local manufacturing industry. He built Sterling Dynamics, from the ground up, a precision parts company, with sheer grit and relentless dedication. He's a man of principles, hard work, loyalty, and tradition above all else. Growing up, I was always acutely aware of the weight of his expectations. I was his only son, his heir, destined to take over the family empire he meticulously crafted. From the moment I could walk, I was implicitly groomed for this role. Weekends weren't for cartoons or playing outside, they were for visiting the factory, observing the machinery, and listening to my father's impassioned speeches about the importance of legacy and the sacrifices he made. He's a good man, in his own way. He provided for us, never let us want for anything material, and genuinely believed he was setting me up for a secure, prosperous future. But his love, to me, always felt conditional, tied to my willingness to conform to his vision. My mother, bless her heart, was always the peacemaker, the quiet buffer between my father's rigid demands and my budding, less conventional interests. She'd quietly slip me art supplies or encourage my love for photography, knowing full well my father viewed these as frivolous hobbies, distractions from my true calling. There was an unspoken tension, a low hum beneath the surface of our outwardly perfect family life. My father always projected strength, and I learned early on that showing any weakness or divergence from his path was met with disappointment. He never explicitly forbade my artistic pursuits, but his sighs, his pointed questions about when I'd grow up and get serious, spoke volumes. A significant event that shaped our dynamic was when I was 18 and applying to universities. I secretly applied to a prestigious art school, getting accepted with a partial scholarship. When I nervously presented this to my father, his reaction was swift and decisive. He didn't yell, he just looked at me with a profound disappointment that cut deeper than any shout. "Alex," he said, his voice quiet, "we've always known you'd join Sterling. You have a duty to this family, to what I've built. Art school is for dreamers, not for men who have a legacy to uphold." He had already arranged for my enrollment in a business program at the state university, conveniently located close to the factory. My mother tried to intervene, but a single look from him silenced her. I folded. The emotional tone of our relationship was always a blend of deep-seated familial obligation, a desperate yearning for his approval, and a growing, suffocating sense of unspoken resentment for the life I felt was being chosen for me. The factory, which was supposed to be my future, began to feel like a gilded cage. After reluctantly graduating with a business degree, I joined Sterling Dynamics immediately, as was expected. The initial years were a slow, agonizing slide into what felt like an emotional black hole. I dutifully learned the ropes, from the factory floor to the accounting department, absorbing every detail of the business my father had poured his life into. I even had some decent ideas for streamlining processes and exploring new markets, but every suggestion I made, especially those involving technology or creative branding, was met with skepticism or outright dismissal. "We do things the old-fashioned way, Alex," my father would grumble. "It's worked for 50 years. My creative outlets, once a vibrant escape, slowly withered under the relentless demands of the business and my father's ever-present shadow. My camera gathered dust, my sketchbook lay forgotten. The emotional distance between us grew exponentially. Our conversations became purely transactional, revolving around production targets, quarterly reports, and client meetings. Any attempt I made to discuss my personal life, my dwindling hobbies, or my quiet dissatisfaction was met with a paternalistic lecture about focusing on what matters, or making sacrifices for the future. It was as if my identity outside of future CEO simply didn't exist for him. The subtle betrayals became more frequent and harder to ignore. He'd often make crucial decisions without consulting me, even on projects I was ostensibly leading, then announce them to the team, undermining any semblance of authority I might have been trying to build. Once, during a company dinner, a new client asked me about my hobbies, and I tentatively mentioned photography. My father chuckled loudly. "Oh, Alex likes to play with his little camera. Cute, isn't it? But his real talent is in the numbers, aren't you, son?" The dismissive tone, the public emasculation of my passion, stung deeply. These were the early warning signs, glaring red flags that I pushed down, convinced I could eventually make my peace with this life. My mental health began to deteriorate. I started experiencing chronic anxiety, waking up with a sense of dread every morning. I'd avoid family gatherings, knowing they would inevitably devolve into discussions about the business, or worse, my father's thinly veiled criticisms of my lack of drive, compared to his own youthful ambition. My escape became clandestine photography gigs on weekends, often late into the night. I'd sneak out, my camera bag a symbol of my secret rebellion, and lose myself in capturing the world through my lens. These moments, stolen from the life my father dictated, were my only source of genuine joy and self-expression. They gave me a taste of the freedom I craved, amplifying the suffocating feeling of my everyday existence at Sterling Dynamics. The quiet resentment simmering beneath the surface was turning into a boiling rage, a desperate cry for autonomy that was about to rupture everything. I knew, deep down, that this double life couldn't last forever. The pressure was building, and the breaking point was imminent. The powder keg finally detonated last Thursday, during our weekly, strategic planning dinner at my parents' sprawling, immaculately kept home. The atmosphere was already thick with unspoken tension, typical of these dinners where my father held court. He was detailing his latest 5-year expansion plan for Sterling Dynamics, meticulously outlining my future role, which involved heading up a new, entirely unappealing division. He spoke with such conviction, so sure of my eager participation, that a cold fury began to simmer within me. My mother, sensing the shift, kept shooting me nervous glances across the polished mahogany table. "And so, Alex," my father concluded, beaming, "this new division will be your proving ground. A real challenge, something to sink your teeth into. It's exactly what you need to prepare you for taking the helm." He raised his glass, expecting me to echo his enthusiasm, to toast to my gilded cage. But something inside me snapped. The years of suppressed dreams, the countless hours spent feeling like a ghost in my own life, the quiet resentment, it all coalesced into a blinding white-hot surge. I felt a tremor run through my body, a desperate need to reclaim my narrative, right then and there. "I won't be heading that division, Dad," I said, my voice surprisingly calm, despite the earthquake rumbling beneath my ribs. My mother gasped, a small, choked sound. My father's smile faltered, replaced by a look of bewildered annoyance. "What are you talking about, Alex? This is the opportunity of a lifetime. We've discussed this." "No, we haven't discussed it," I corrected him, my voice gaining strength. "You've dictated it. Just like you dictated my university choice, my internships, my entire career path." I pushed back my chair, standing up. "I'm leaving Sterling Dynamics, Dad. I'm leaving the business." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the clinking of cutlery in my mother's trembling hand. My father's face contorted, initially with disbelief, then with a raw, unadulterated fury I hadn't seen directed at me since my rebellious teenage years. "You're what?" he spat, rising slowly from his seat. "Are you mad? You're throwing away everything I've built, everything I've worked for, everything I've handed to you on a silver platter? For what, Alex? For some frivolous hobby?" His voice was low, dangerous. "I'm pursuing photography, Dad," I stated, my voice quivering but firm. "It's not a hobby. It's my passion. It's what I actually want to do with my life. I can't keep living a lie just to fulfill your expectations." "A lie?" he roared, slamming his hand on the table, making the silverware jump. "I gave you a future. I gave you security. You think you can just walk away from your responsibilities, from your family's legacy, to chase some impossible dream? You're a fool, Alex. An ungrateful, selfish fool. You're spitting on everything I've built. Tears welled in my eyes, but they were tears of frustration and a deep, agonizing pain, not sadness. You never gave me a choice, Dad. You gave me a cage. I've been suffocating here for years, trying to be the son you wanted, while losing myself. I'm not spitting on your legacy. I'm trying to save my own life. My mother finally interjected, her voice strained. Robert, please, not like this. But neither of us heard her. You disappoint me, Alex, my father said, his voice now dangerously calm, his eyes cold and hard. You are no son of mine if you abandon this family, this legacy. Then maybe I never was your son, if your love is conditional on me being your corporate clone. I retorted, the words tearing from my throat. I grabbed my car keys and walked out, leaving my parents stunned and silent. The confrontation was brutal, raw, and utterly devastating. My father, genuinely believing he had sacrificed everything for my future, saw my decision as a personal betrayal, a rejection of his entire life's work. I, desperate for autonomy and authenticity, finally broke free, even if it meant shattering our relationship. The moral ambiguity hung heavy in the air, a thick cloud of conflicting loves, duties, and perceived injustices. The immediate aftermath was a desolate wasteland of silence. I drove home in a daze, the echoes of my father's furious words and my own desperate shouts still ringing in my ears. My chest felt hollowed out, a gaping wound where a lifelong connection used to be. When I finally got back to my apartment, I just collapsed onto the sofa, staring blankly at the wall, the adrenaline slowly draining away, leaving behind a profound emotional exhaustion. The initial surge of defiant relief I'd felt during the argument quickly gave way to a crippling wave of guilt and grief. The rage, once a searing inferno, transformed into a dull, persistent ache. I had done it. I had finally broken free. But the cost felt astronomical. I hadn't just ended a toxic professional relationship, I had detonated my family. The idealized image of my father, the one I had simultaneously revered and feared, lay shattered. And with it, the vision of a future where, perhaps, we could have reconciled, where he might have eventually understood me. The betrayal I felt from him, the years of subtle erasure of my true self, was immense. But now, I was acutely aware of the betrayal he must feel. He genuinely believed he was doing what was best for me, providing a stable, prosperous path. From his perspective, I had thrown away a lifetime of security, spit on his sacrifices, and rejected his love. This understanding, while not excusing his behavior, amplified my guilt to an almost unbearable degree. My daily life became a struggle against the crushing weight. My photography, which had been my sanctuary, now felt tainted. How could I create art when my soul felt so fractured? I couldn't focus on my freelance projects, the joy and spontaneity replaced by a sense of urgency and desperation. The financial insecurity, once a distant fear, became a stark reality. I had to quickly ramp up my photography business, but the emotional turmoil made creativity difficult. My mental health plummeted. I experienced bouts of intense anxiety, my heart pounding, my breath shallow, constantly replaying the argument, dissecting every word. Sleep became elusive, plagued by nightmares of my father's disappointed face. I felt utterly isolated. My mother, caught in the crossfire, became a source of quiet, heartbreaking pain. She called me a few days later, her voice weary and tearful. Alex, please, your father is devastated. He just wants what's best for you. She wasn't blaming me, not explicitly, but her pleas for reconciliation, for me to think about what you're throwing away, reinforced the notion that I was the one who had caused all this pain. Her loyalty was clearly divided, and I couldn't blame her, but it left me feeling more alone than ever. My closest friends were incredibly supportive, listening patiently and validating my feelings. You did what you had to do, Alex, they'd say. You can't live someone else's life. Their words were a comfort, but they couldn't fully mend the gaping wound in my heart. The weight of the broken relationship, the uncertainty of my future, and the pervasive sadness felt almost unbearable. I missed the connection I once had with my father, even as I recognized that it was built on a foundation of unspoken control. It's been a little over a month since the explosive confrontation, and the silence from my father is absolute. My mother still calls, but our conversations are strained, filled with unspoken tension and her desperate attempts to bridge a chasm I fear is now too wide. I've spent countless hours in the quiet of my apartment, staring at my camera, replaying every moment of that night, every interaction leading up to it. My mind is a battlefield of conflicting emotions and doubts. Was I too harsh? Did I burn the bridge beyond repair? Was my anger justified, or was it an overreaction to years of pent-up resentment that I should have addressed more constructively? I've always been the quieter, more introspective one, prone to bottling things up, and this explosion feels so utterly unlike me. But then again, maybe that's the problem. I'd been bottling things up for 30 years. Was this the only way to finally make him understand the depth of my despair, the suffocation I felt? Or did I simply inflict unnecessary pain on a man who, in his own misguided way, genuinely believed he was acting out of love and providing for my future? He built that business from nothing, sacrificed so much, and saw it as his legacy, a testament to his life's work. From his perspective, I abandoned not just the company, but him, and everything he stood for. I can understand his anger, his feeling of betrayal, even if I fundamentally disagree with his methods. Part of me feels a profound sense of liberation, a lightness I haven't experienced in years. The constant pressure to conform, to be someone I'm not, is finally gone. I can breathe. I can focus on my photography without guilt, without feeling like I'm betraying my family. But another, much larger part of me grieves deeply for the father-son relationship I thought we had, for the shared history that now feels tainted, and for the future holidays and family moments that might never happen again. It's hard to reconcile the stern, yet loving, father of my childhood with the man who told me I was no son of his. So Reddit, I'm turning to you because I'm lost and desperately need outside perspectives. AITA for finally snapping and telling my father I was leaving the family business to pursue my passion, even though it caused a complete rupture in our relationship and devastated him? Was I wrong to prioritize my own happiness and authenticity over my father's legacy and expectations, knowing how much he invested in me? Or was I justified in finally standing up for myself, even if it meant being labeled the ungrateful son by my own family? I need honest input, because my own mind is a whirlwind of conflicting emotions and doubts, and I don't know how to move forward.